Our final speaker is Dr. Marilyn Johnson. Marilyn is the Research and Policy Manager at the Amy Gillett Foundation and a Research Fellow at Monash University Institute of Transport Studies. Marilyn's research focus is cycling safety and how cyclists and drivers interact on the roads. She is currently undertaking the largest study in Australia on electric bikes. Marilyn is a regular commuter cyclist and she rides 80 to 100 k's a week. She currently rides a very lovely upright bike, complete with a springy saddle and a front basket with a smile. Marilyn is going to propose a manifesto for safer bike riding. Thank you, Marilyn.
Hi everyone. In my 7 minutes I'm going to talk to you about the Amy Gillett Foundation's manifesto for safer bike riding in Australia. It's true I am still at Monash, but today my hat is firmly with the AGF. We've heard today that the number of people riding is going up, and that's a really good thing. Nationally, we're at about 4 million cyclists get out on their bikes at some time in the year, which is great. National target's to double that by 2016. That's good as well. But as we've heard, it's at what cost? What is the human cost in terms of trauma on our roads? We're consistently at 35 deaths every year in Australia for cyclists, and already in New South Wales we've seen 8 deaths this year. We're almost at 10,000 people being seriously injured each year in a cycling-related crash. From the AGF's perspective, this is a human cost that's unacceptable. It's too high. From where we stand, everyone has a right to ride safely, for work, for play, in Lycra, out of Lycra, on their ladies' bike, wherever they want to ride, whoever wants to ride. They have the right to do that safely. We don't believe that it's fair, correct, right or moral that there should be a situation here in Australia where because of the mode of transport that you choose, someone's mistake on the road could cost you your life. So the action that we see that needs to be taken, well, we're calling it 3, 2, 1, and it leads to 0. So I'm going to talk to you about those now. 3 critical factors. We need to take action. The first one is to have safer people. There's some detail that might be too small for people at the back, apologies for that. We need to allocate 18% of the road safety communications budget to safe messaging about cyclists. Why 18%? If we look at every single road user in Australia who's seriously injured on our roads, 18% of those are cyclists. If we're going to take this message seriously, if we're going to be serious about cycling safety, we need to be serious about the amount of resources we commit to this. Mandatory cycling content in driver licensing processes. We need this. If we want our drivers to be safe in the way they share the road with cyclists, they need to know how to do it. It doesn't happen by osmosis. One of the places that we can start is with new learner drivers. The way they're taught in their lessons as they get taught to train by instructors, what's included in the actual handbook, what's in the practical test and what's in the theory tests. We need some basic quota sampling to make sure that every single learner driver is tested about cyclists on the road in their tests. Bicycle skills training, whether it's in our schools for children or whether it's for adult riders who are a little bit concerned about heading back out onto the road, skills is definitely something that we need to make available to anyone who wants it. And through AusCycle, the Amy Gillett Foundation is passionate about that and making sure that that's available. Picking up on Boyd's point, police investigation. We have to have this. Currently, the default is that police will investigate fatality crashes, but they will not investigate all serious injury crashes. That's particularly the case when a crash occurs and the police don't attend, and the cyclist then will go and report that crash at a later time. These things need to be followed up. People are being seriously injured and we need to take this seriously. We need to improve and enforce the rules as they exist. We have rules that protect cyclists in terms of dooring, blocking bike lanes. There's a range of things that protect us when we're on the road. If they're not being enforced, the message is clear to drivers that you can get away with it and that this doesn't matter. This is a clear point of action that the AGF is really strongly driven to making a change with. And then improving the legal and regulatory protection for cyclists. It's one thing for us to be safe physically on the road, but when we're off the road and whether it's a courtroom proceeding or whether it's about insurance, we need to ensure that cyclists are safe. So that's our first critical factor. The second is safer roads. We've heard before, I don't need to go into it, that safer speeds is going to save people's lives, especially when you're interacting with cyclists and drivers in a shared space. A minimum spend on the cycling facility infrastructures at all levels of government, federal, state, local, on all roads. There needs to be a line item in road safety budgets that includes cycling facilities. We need targeted action to reduce rider black spots or rider crash types. If we know that there's a specific area where there are a lot of crashes occurring, or we know that there's a specific crash type that's occurring, we need to take some targeted action to reduce that. And then we need to have some benchmark guidelines. What does it mean to be a safe cycling community? What does it mean to have a safe suburb, a safe street? How can we empower people who are in decision-making positions to check these things off and make sure that we are achieving some real safety gains? The third critical factor is safer vehicles. This is both the vehicle and the bicycle. To date so far, vehicle safety focus has been on the occupants in a car, airbags, braking systems, stability control. This is all about keeping safe the passengers and the driver. We need to make sure that the testing that we subject our new vehicles to looks at the non-occupants on our roads, the vulnerable road users, the cyclists, the pedestrians and the motorcyclists. And finally, there's a responsibility for cyclists themselves to make sure they have a safe bicycle. So to make sure that you have working brakes, that you have lights and that you have a bell or an auditory warning device, even people are a little bit anti-light bell sometimes. The second in our 3210 is that we need to work together. It's not for the AGF to make these changes. Everyone in this room, all the 4 million people who are on a bike sometime this year, all the drivers, we have to do this together. And we invite you to be part of this. We invite everyone to be part of this. And we would also like to extend our willingness to help in any groups that are working towards these same goals. The one is a metre, 1 metre, it matters. Basically, if drivers aren't passing too close to cyclists, the likelihood that they'll be hit is reduced, regardless of what facilities are on the road. And finally, we're working towards zero cyclist deaths by 2020. We need this commitment from all levels of government, all levels of decision makers. That's the zero in this. And I'll leave you with a quote from Klaus Tingvall. Klaus was one of the founding developers of Sweden's Vision Zero concept, the notion that we have the right as humans to make mistakes on the road, and that is going to happen, but that mistake shouldn't lead to the death of any road user. And the quote is this: "We need to understand that as a society, we can demand mobility and freedom. We can also demand safety at the same time." And that's what we want to do, and that's what we invite everyone else to do, is to demand safety for cyclists. Because I'm an academic, the references are there, so if you'd like to check on any of this, it's included. And I'd like to thank you for your attention.